Good, happy Wednesday evening. I'm Riley King, and welcome to the news with Riley King. Let's begin. First up, Vice Presidential Debate, October 7, 2020. Let's take a look at this promo from ABC News.
Wednesday night on ABC, Mike Pence, Kamala Harris. Now, with so much on the line, the vice presidential debate, starting with a live event special with George Stephanopoulos and the most powerful team in politics. Then the debate, Wednesday night on ABC.
Okay, and there you go. The debate begins at 9 p.m. this evening on all major news networks. We will have pre-coverage of the debate right here on the Riley King Network starting at 7 p.m. Mike Pence, Kamala Harris prepare to face off in its first VP debate. Let's take a listen to that video from Good Morning America, ABC News.
Now to tonight's vice presidential debate taking place at the University of Utah under those extraordinary circumstances. With 27 days to go until the final votes, an estimated nearly 5 million Americans already taking advantage of early voting options to cast their ballots. Our Mary Bruce has the very latest. She's there in Salt Lake City for us. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Robin. Well, this is it, the only matchup between Senator Kamala Harris and Vice President Mike Pence. And already, this debate has a new sense of urgency with the president's diagnosis and with Joe Biden possibly set to become the nation's oldest president. Americans are looking to have some confidence, some reassurance that the vice president can step in if needed. And already, the coronavirus is front and center on tonight's debate stage. Kamala Harris and Mike Pence now just hours away from their first face-off.
And we're looking very much forward to the vice presidential debate.
But this morning, new questions about the vice president's safety after White House advisor Stephen Miller tested positive. His wife, Katie Miller, is Pence's communications director. She was traveling with him in Utah, but after her husband's diagnosis, she was abruptly sent home. She's tested negative the past 2 days. The White House insists the vice president is safe to debate. His doctor saying Pence has not been in close contact with anyone who has tested positive and is encouraged to go about his normal activities and does not need to quarantine. But Pence was seen here at what is now being called a super spreader event, that Rose Garden ceremony, sitting right in front of Senator Mike Lee, who shortly after tested positive. The Harris team is not satisfied, demanding more safety precautions at tonight's debate. The candidates will now be at a greater distance, more than 12 feet apart, but the Harris team also wants these plexiglass barriers to remain in place. Initially, the Pence team mocked the request, saying if Senator Harris wants to use a fortress around herself, have at it. But overnight, changing their tone, saying if such a barrier is critical for the Harris team, then we're not going to let it stand in the way. Now, the hurdles for this debate pale in comparison to the challenges for the presidential debate still set for next week. The president, still COVID positive, is promising his supporters that he will be there to debate in Miami. But overnight, Joe Biden drawing a line saying that there will be no debate until after the president tests negative and is rid of this virus. The debate host telling us this is all up in the air. Everything depends on the president's health. Robin.
It certainly does. And Mary, as you know, less than a month ago into the election, and now top intelligence officials are now trying to boost Americans' confidence when it comes to Election Day.
Leaders in the intelligence community have joined forces releasing a video trying to assure Americans that they can be confident that the election will be conducted safely and securely, and also urging Americans to be patient as we may not know the results of this election on November 3rd. It, of course, is a sharp contrast with a message coming from the president, who has been trying to sow doubt about the election and spread false claims that this election will be fraudulent. Robin.
Quite a contrast, yes. And I know it's going to be a long day for you, Mary. We're going to have full coverage of the vice presidential debate tonight. George is going to be anchoring with our political team starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. Well, hey there, Jim.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. President Trump ends coronavirus relief talks, then stirs confusion. Let's take a listen to that video from CBS News.
At the White House, there is confusion this morning after the president said he would stop talks aimed at helping Americans through this pandemic and then appeared to reverse course. The president made no public appearances yesterday as he continues to battle the coronavirus, but on Twitter he did call for his negotiators to walk away from efforts to pass a second stimulus package.
That message immediately sent stocks into a nosedive and drew sharp criticism from members of both parties. More than 26 million Americans are on unemployment right now. Many are in desperate need of help. Nancy Cordes is on Capitol Hill. Nancy, the president has since tweeted he does want some type of stimulus. What exactly is going on here?
Well, his flood of tweets last night, Anthony, indicates that he is aware of the fallout over his decision to walk away, but the piecemeal approach he's now proposing is unlikely to win support from Democrats. I can tell you from talking to aides on both sides that his announcement that he was pulling out of the talks came as a surprise to both parties. It all started Tuesday afternoon when the president abruptly tweeted, "I have instructed my representatives to stop negotiating until after the election, when immediately after I win, we will pass a major stimulus bill." That means that Americans, at least for now, will not be getting another round of $1,200 stimulus checks. Just a few hours before the president's announcement, the Federal Reserve Chair was making the case for more rescue funding now.
Too little support would lead to a weak recovery, creating unnecessary hardship for households and businesses.
Confusingly, the president tweeted that he agreed with Powell after he had shut down the talks. His decision sent the Dow plunging almost 600 points and drew fire from the airlines, the Chamber of Commerce, and even some Republicans. Amid the backlash, the president took to Twitter again in the evening, saying Congress should approve $25 billion in funds for airline workers and $135 billion for small businesses, as well as those $1,200 stimulus checks. Speaker Pelosi called the president's move to end the talks an act of desperation, and in a phone call with fellow Democrats, she speculated that the steroids he is on for COVID may be impacting his thinking. One person who did agree with the president's decision was Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who said that the two sides were still pretty far apart and were unlikely to reach a deal in time for the election anyway. But other Republicans worry that by walking away, the president is going to get the bulk of the blame and that could affect the entire party right before Election Day. Tony?
Either way, millions of Americans do not have time to wait. Nancy, thank you very much.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. White House aide Stephen Miller tests positive as outbreak spreads to Pentagon. Let's take a listen to that video from NBC News.
This morning, President Trump's at the White House, but his West Wing is looking more like a ghost town. Stephen Miller, the president's top speechwriter and a policy advisor, joining a growing list of close aides infected by the virus.
He has been self-quarantining for 5 days, but nevertheless tested positive based on a prior exposure. I talked to him just before coming to air, and he's doing well.
His wife, Katie Miller, Vice President Pence's communications director, contracted the virus last May and tested negative for a new infection on Tuesday. Still, she left Salt Lake City, the site of tonight's VP debate, out of an abundance of caution. Miller is the 18th White House aide or ally to test positive, and while much attention is focused on that Rose Garden event 11 days ago, 2 other indoor clusters have become focal points. The president's debate prep session, 6 positives in that group, including Hope Hicks, Kellyanne Conway, and Chris Christie. And the press shop, in addition to Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, 4 press aides now positive. Also impacted, Joint Chiefs Chairman General Mark Milley and other top military chiefs, now quarantining at home after a top Coast Guard official tested positive. President Trump's physician says the president is experiencing no symptoms, but the president's efforts to minimize the threat are infuriating some of the families of the more than 210,000 Americans who have died from COVID.
Don't let it dominate. Don't let it take over your lives. Don't let that happen.
Amanda Klutz's husband, Broadway star Nick Cordero, died 3 months ago.
Nick didn't let it. It wasn't a choice. And it dominated his life. It dominated my life. It dominated our family's lives. Have some empathy.
And even as President Trump receives world-class care, he insists we are learning to live with COVID, while falsely comparing it to the flu, writing in part, "Flu season is coming up. Many people every year, sometimes over 100,000, and despite the vaccine, die from the flu. Are we going to close down our country? No." A post removed by Facebook and flagged by Twitter as misleading and potentially harmful. In fact, more people have already died from coronavirus in the U.S. than those who have died from the flu in the past 5 seasons combined. The president himself acknowledging the difference to journalist Bob Woodward back in February.
It's also more deadly than your strenuous flus.
Joe Biden weighing in on the campaign trail Tuesday in Pennsylvania.
This pandemic is not a red state or blue state issue. This virus doesn't care whether you live or where you live, what political party you belong to. It affects us all. It will take anyone's life. It's a virus. It's not a political weapon.
Biden in that speech on the value of wearing masks, saying it's not a political statement, it's a scientific recommendation. And this morning, the New York Times reports that some White House staff members are wondering whether the president's behavior was spurred by a cocktail of drugs that he's been taking to treat the virus, including dexamethasone, that steroid that can cause mood swings and give a false level of energy and a sense of euphoria.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And now let's take a look at your U.S. stock market and see how your U.S. stock market did for this Wednesday. And here is a look at that U.S. stock market for all of you. Your Dow Jones Industrial Average closed in the green and went up. Your Nasdaq closed in the green and went up. S&P 500 closed in the green and went up. Gold closed in the red and went down. Oil closed in green and went up. U.S. 10-year closed flat. Euro/USD closed in the green and went up. And VIX closed in the red and went down. Features a little changed after Dow paused best day since July on stimulus optimism. U.S. stock index were little changed in overnight trading after the Dow posted its best day in months as investors await updates on the ongoing fiscal stimulus discussion. And that does it for this Wednesday evening edition of The News with Riley King. Thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your Wednesday evening. Be sure to come back here at 7 p.m. for special coverage of pre-debate coverage of the vice presidential debate. Good night and goodbye, everyone.